Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. This will be the last video you see me here because I'm going to be going back home tomorrow. With that said, we've got some big stuff to cover today, starting with last minute deals, official 12th gen non-K series specs, Intel's game changer, is Nvidia screwing gamers again, and AMD's Ryzen 7000 CPUs are set to crush Intel with this. Okay. It's news time, and first up for today, if you're looking for some last minute deals, Newegg currently has their 72-hour flash sales event, and they actually have some pretty good stuff. As you can see here, we have quite a few items that have multiple things that are off, like save up to 14% on G.Skill desktop memory. Then we go down here, up to 36% off on Samsung SSDs from 1TB to 4TB. Really, there are quite a few pretty decent deals here. You just need to go through and find them. And of course, if you're interested, I will have affiliate links down in the description below. Just click on those to find your favorite deal. And of course, it doesn't cost you anything more and it helps the channel out. And next up for today, we have some final information from video cards on Intel's upcoming non-K models. Now, these are specifically their F variants, and as you can see here, we have the boxes. This is for the i5, i3, and then i7. But of course, the most important part is specs, and if we go down here, you can see that this is clearly some marketing material. Starting things off, we have the i3 12100F, which comes with a clock speed of up to 4.3 GHz on 4 cores and 8 threads, all of which are their performance cores, so there aren't any E-cores, at least on this and the next one, to which is the i5 12400F, which is a 6-core 12-thread CPU with up to 4.4 GHz. And lastly is the i7 12700F, which comes with up to a maximum clock speed of 4.9 GHz with 12 cores and 20 threads, which of course means it has 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. And speaking of non-K models, Igor's Lab just did what is effectively what they even call the first review of Intel's i5 12400. And let's just say it changes everything. Now, really quickly, I do want to say that this is not technically a 12400, at least according to them. They use some kind of undisclosed CPU, probably a 12900K, something along those lines. Disabled some of the cores, and you can see they used an emulated CPU, but a lot of people try to say, well, because they used an emulated CPU, because it is obviously going to be from a higher end CPU that's already released, well, the Silicon Lottery is much better. But the issue with that is the fact that he did restrict it to the clocks of what it will be as far as the specs that we've seen. Meaning that while sure it may technically be able to go higher, he didn't let it. So this should be a fairly decent test. And when it comes to performance, it does really well. Now, I will say that he did do 720p, but I feel like 1080p is a really good spot to show it off just because, well, he's using a 6900 XT. So clearly no one's going to be playing in 720p. I feel like it's a little more real world. I understand why he did it, to completely eliminate the GPU bottleneck, so the only real bottleneck ends up being the CPU. Regardless, there are quite a bit of differences. We can see right here, the 12400F does extremely well, beating out the 5600X by quite a bit. But I will say that they more or less trade blows. You can see here the 5600X ultimately beats it. The 12400 beats it here. They more or less trade blows, with the 12400 beating it out more than not, at least from what I saw. But what's so game-changing about this, because I've definitely seen some people saying, oh yeah, it's game-changing because it can beat what's essentially a 2-year-old or, over a year-old CPU. Oh, that's so great. But here's the thing. Intel's 11400F, and of course, the 12400F is likely a little bit more expensive, but not all that much. The 11400F is only $157 MSRP, while the 5600X is a whopping $299 MSRP. So this is a massive difference, even at $200, which is quite a bit more than where it's at here. Though, yes, this isn't technically the MSRP. It's usually right around here, even if it's a little bit higher. Even, like I said, at $200, we're still looking at $100 less than the 5600X that essentially trades blows with it. Not only that, but when we go down here, we can actually see that the CPU power consumption for the 12400 is incredible. As we go through these, you'll see that it's significantly better in wattage compared to pretty much any other CPU. Basically, the 12400, if it does as good as we've seen here, we're looking at a sub $200 CPU that can beat AMD's 5600X, which I would say is definitely game-changing. And next up for today, we have a pretty interesting post here on the upcoming RTX 3080 12GB GPU. Now, really quickly, before I get to it, Igor's Lab actually has a post that states that both the 3070 Ti 16GB and 3080 12GB have been postponed. And we actually aren't 100% sure if the 3080 12GB is still coming, but we definitely know that it is at least a thing right now. But the thing that really strikes me when we actually go over these specs is the fact that the only reason I could understand why Nvidia would release a GPU like this is basically for miners, and it looks like that might be the case. Now, Igor's Lab seems to think that they are more or less holding off to see what Intel brings to the table with their GPUs, but the issue with that is that, for one, so far we've only seen Intel's GPUs set to compete with the 3070 or 3070 Ti, not a 3080. Not only that, but when we look at the specs right here, you can see we have the 3080 12GB, which actually does have a little bit more cores over the regular 3080, but not much. We're talking 8704 to 8960. I believe it's 2 point something %. Basically nothing at all. So it's almost entirely going to be falling back on those 12GB. To me, the only thing that really makes sense of this is that they're yet again releasing a card that's effectively for miners. And as you can see here, according to this card is actually 20% faster than the regular 3080 in mining. And that's because of the faster memory. Now, if we look down here, we can see, let me find it. Yeah, with LHR or light hash rate, the card is stated to get 52 megahashes per second, which is significantly better than the 43 megahashes per second with LHR that you get with the regular 3080. The issue is that a lot of people have effectively already found ways around that light hash rate. So instead of 52, we're likely looking at over 100, which is a pretty big deal. Now, some people, I do believe, were able to get around 100 with the 3080, but this will just be even better. So if you ask me, this is just Nvidia yet again releasing GPUs that are made for gamers for miners. And one of the most frustrating things about this is the fact that they released their mining GPUs already, and those weren't based on the 3000 series because, oh, the 3000 series is for gamers, and we're just going to take it out of the 2000 series Turing cards. Well, it looks like that isn't really the case anymore. Yes, they are still including LHR, but if you ask me, this is seriously infuriating. The simple fact is that there will likely be very little increase in gaming, yet a 20% increase in mining is a pretty big deal. And really, this looks even worse than it did with that 12GB 2060, just because this is actually based on Ampere. This is absolutely absurd. I highly doubt this will help gamers at all. And honestly, I feel like this will just take silicon away from cards that are actually aimed for gamers. And lastly for today, we have a news story from Red Gaming Tech. And really, I'm going to make this quick, but it is a huge deal. According to them, from what they're hearing on AMD's next-gen Zen 4-based CPUs, which from what we're seeing looks like they're probably going to be called Ryzen 7000, though of course, who cares what they're going to be called? Basically, from what they've heard, Ryzen 7000 is set to get between a 25 and 40% increase in their IPC. We're talking average IPC here, which means single core at the same clock. This is how much better it is over last gen. Basically, this could be huge. Now, even if this is when comparing it to Zen 3, 25 to 40% is massive, and it's almost guaranteed to completely crush Intel's Raptor Lake. Remember that Raptor Lake at least seems like it's just going to be a small increase, just a bit of a refinement from Alder Lake. So it's definitely not going to be huge jumps in IPC or anything like that. But if AMD is able to pull this off, let's just say Intel is going to be playing a whole lot of catch up yet again. So while that does it for today, are you pumped for Intel's upcoming non-K models, or are you way more ready for AMD's Ryzen 7000? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe. And as always, have a great day.